All right. It's hard to believe it's Wednesday, but we're here, we're at it, and we're live for another episode of the Cole Memo. Folks, I hope you're doing well. In case you missed it, recently had a live stream with the two dope dudes from the Elevated News podcast. Definitely go and check that out. I think possibly the best way, the easiest way to do that. We'll have a link on colememo.com soon. But if you go to colememo.com/YouTube, which I'm displaying on my screen right now, make that full screen and you click go to the YouTube channel. If you go over to live, you'll see that it's one of the most recent live streams that we've done right here on the show. So, folks, there's been a press release, which I'm displaying right now, that's been making waves. People are saying that, hey, rescheduling might just happen and it might just happen soon. That's what we're going to be talking about in this episode of
The Cole Memo.
The Cole Memo.
The Cole Memorandum.
The Cole Memo.
The Cole Memorandum.
The Cole Memo.
The Cole Memo is what allows this whole thing to go on.
I mean, you have to respect the memo.
Hey, this is Tommy Chong, and you're listening and watching The Cole Memo.
All right, yeah, let's do it. So this new press release, which I'll put back on screen right now, well, it's a press release from MMJ Biopharma Cultivation, and it's been making waves across the cannabis space these last few days. People are chock full of speculation, excitement, and even cautious optimism about the future of federal cannabis policy. So MMJ has apparently spent the last 7 years in a legal battle with the DEA over its application to produce a pharmaceutical cannabis product, and it's now going public with a series of explosive allegations. The company accuses the DEA, I'll just rephrase that. I feel like I slurred my words there. The company accuses the DEA of violating constitutional principles, obstructing research, and selectively enforcing cannabis laws in favor of large corporate players. But what really got people talking was a statement, this one right here at the top, which I'll read here in a second, from Attorney General Pam Bondi, who was appointed under President Trump, who acknowledged that the DEA's administrative hearing system is unconstitutional. The DOJ has withdrawn its defense of the agency's internal process, and Bondi's language has been seen by some as a green light for broader reform. So what she said, this is from the press release, the department has reviewed recent Supreme Court precedent and concluded that the existing structure of DEA's ALJ does not meet constitutional muster, effective immediately. We will no longer defend this system in litigation and have notified federal courts accordingly. So that's what's gotten people talking. People have been speculating these past few days that this could bode well for federal rescheduling, a process that began under President Joe Biden. The mood among some investors and industry figures is very upbeat, with many speculating that they saw this as a major signal of change. That said, as I've discussed before and we'll touch on again later in this video, rescheduling alone would not fully legalize state-licensed cannabis businesses under federal law. While it could offer relief from tax burdens like 280E, most of these companies would still be operating in violation of the Controlled Substances Act, because while cannabis is currently the only Schedule 1 substance being sold over the counter, even Schedule 3 drugs are not legally available over the counter without a prescription. In a moment, we're going to take a look at some clips from MMJ's CEO so you can hear the tone and substance of what's being said for yourself. I always think that's really important, and I'll encourage you to check out the full interview because we will just be watching clips today. This press release, like I said, it's certainly been making waves. It's been generating some real discussion, but the future remains, as always with cannabis, uncertain. And everyone at this point is still speculating, including myself. One thing is clear, though. As long as cannabis remains a controlled substance, the current state of the market continues to exist in violation of the Controlled Substances Act. So, folks, we are live right now, so comment below and we can display your comment. Two Dope Dudes says they are smashing that like button, and so if you can do the same, I would highly appreciate it. In fact, those are the Two Dope Dudes that I just mentioned at the top of this show that I recently did a cross show with. So definitely check out that episode. I'll try to throw that link in the show notes once I've got the show notes posted. So if you're watching live right now, I usually go back to the episodes and post show notes after the fact. So let's play some clips. Let's talk about what's got all the people talking. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. It would be super appreciated. We're going to be watching clips from the Dales Report today, which is an amazing cannabis show. If you don't watch it, they have some of the biggest players on in the space. And they brought on the CEO of MMJ Biopharma, which, like I said, is involved in this lawsuit with the DEA. They released this press release. And actually, before we watch this clip, I want to show you some of the names that they throw out in this lawsuit. So if you scroll down here, I mentioned that they pointed out what some might call selective enforcement. And in this line right here, they're saying that the DEA is ignoring illegal THC exports by major cannabis firms, including Curaleaf, Cookies, and Active, while blocking compliant research. See, this MMJ Biopharma has applied to basically operate under the FDA approved research protocol, for lack of better words. And like I said, and like they mentioned in this press release, this has been on hold for like 7 years. So they're really upset about that. And basically the allegation, as you can read here, is they stand accused of operating as a rogue agency, defying Supreme Court rulings, violating ethical standards, and engaging in selective enforcement of cannabis laws. I just found it really interesting, and this will be covered in one of the clips later, that they're actually naming some of the licensed cannabis companies or brands that you might be familiar with. I found that super notable. So let's watch some of these clips, and I'll pause it here from time to time with a little bit of commentary. Here we go. Let's watch the clip.
Go on.
Okay. So do you think if there is a shift, and I'm not trying to string things together here, but do you think that if there is a shift when Terry Cole gets into the administrator seat and he reschedules cannabis as a whole from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3, do you think that that frees up the administration to effectively grant your API bulk license?
And so I'll pause it for a moment. In case you didn't know, we've covered this on the show in the past, but Terry Cole was appointed to lead the DEA. So just a little bit of background there. We'll continue the clip.
No, or are those two events
again,
not correlated?
we follow the law to a T.
Okay.
We followed it under the Schedule 1 protocol. So whether they reschedule it or not, it has no bearing on us.
Right.
Okay.
Right. But they're still not doing the right thing under the Schedule 1. Why would we ever think they would do it under Schedule 3? I mean, the Schedule 3 thing is no big win. I mean, I think that, we're one of the very few left standing. And, quite honestly, they're not going to stop us because we're.
What do you mean by Schedule 3 is no big win? Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Well, it's still under the Controlled Substance Act.
Yeah.
So it actually could be a derogatory effect on these state operators, right? As I watch the action here, Shad, it doesn't look good for the state operators. Trump just removed the protection of the states by funding the legal mechanism to go after it, right? That's hasn't been ruled on yet, but that's where it's going.
Let's pause that for just a moment here. What did he mean by Trump? He said something about Trump basically allowing for enforcement of these laws. So let's switch over to this article from, it's a recent article from just a couple of days ago from Marijuana Moment, where they cover that Trump wants to delete state medical marijuana protections from the budget. So basically, President Donald Trump is again proposing to remove existing protections for states that have legalized medical cannabis while maintaining a ban that's prevented Washington, D.C. from enacting a system of regulated adult use sales. So that second part, that does suck that Washington, D.C. will continue to be prevented from enacting an adult use cannabis sales program. The headline here for me is that Trump is seeking to delete a longstanding rider that's barred the Justice Department from using its funds to interfere in the implementation of state-level medical marijuana laws. And this is Trump's first budget request of his second term, but during his first term, he similarly called for that deletion each year of his presidency. So they were Trump, I guess, was basically hoping to delete a longstanding rider. And what is that longstanding rider? Well, it's called the Rohrabacher-Farr Amendment. And I'll show you that here on my screen. So basically, a little bit of Wikipedia action here. The Rohrabacher-Farr Amendment was introduced in 2001 and prohibited the Justice Department from spending funds to interfere with the implementation of state medical cannabis laws. So this is not the first time Trump has called for its removal. And if you'll recall, Trump actually rescinded, not Trump himself, but his attorney general at the time, Jeff Sessions, rescinded the Cole Memo, which is the name of this show, but it also was, think of the Cole Memo as the Rohrabacher-Farr Amendment for adult use cannabis. In other words, if you complied with the strictures of the Cole Memo, the Justice Department would not enforce federal law within your state. So the Cole Memo is technically just honored in spirit at this point because, again, it was rescinded during the first Trump administration, and now we've got the Rohrabacher-Farr Amendment back on the chopping block. And according to Marijuana Moment, like I said, is part of this budget request for the 2026 fiscal year that was sent to Congress on Friday, which I think was May 30th. Yeah, so that could be very interesting. Let's continue this clip here. I just wanted to provide a little bit of context as to what they were talking about.
If it is, now the DEA is open to go into the states on potential money laundering issues, potential cartel issues of shipping, potential shipping of, say, a Florida grower into Georgia. That's all in violation of a Schedule I substance and a Schedule III substance. So this isn't looking good for the state-to-state businesses.
But those state businesses, but I mean that's obviously a big hypothetical. I mean those state businesses, at least to my knowledge, there's no Florida businesses shipping product into Georgia. If there are, and that is a complete violation of the MMTC program that they're being governed under in the state of Florida, then there is enforcement that is due in that scenario. If there are,
what I'm saying, don't take me out of context. I'm an advocate, but I'm telling you, I'm watching the speak and I'm watching the actions, and it does not.
I agree with you. I agree with you completely, but also at the same time, adding some nuance to it. If there are operators under these state operator frameworks that are bad actors, then they deserve to get enforced upon by the federal government. Blanketly coming after them would be one other thing, which is an implication of what you're saying, which you can read between the lines. And yes, reneging those protections does open that up, but it's to be determined if they are going to do that as a whole.
So where does Pam Bondi play in this role? Because getting her support, it was crucial. What's the backstory involved in that? Because I'm kind of getting conflicting directions here that you have a support from an attorney general, but yet it's not looking good on the states level for a lot of these companies. Like, is rescheduling what we think it could be and, wiping out 280E and providing growth for the industry? Like, how do you look at it? And what's this mean, as I said before, what her role is in a lot of this right now?
Well, as far as we're concerned, she said that she wasn't going to defend any constitutional challenges for the Drug Enforcement Administration in our case. I consider that as a win. Yeah. Now we have to go back and prove the harm, and we're in the process of doing that right now. And I believe we'll get the administrative law judge recused. We did the first one, so I have no doubt that the second one will happen also. So this is going to play out, but I would take that action as very positive. As it relates to anything else, I have no idea what Terrence Cole is going to do when he takes over as administrator. It's negative from his prior stance. And in that hearing, I watched it very attentively. They were picking out the situation in Oklahoma with the Indian tribe, and that they were taking from the tribal property, crossing over into the state lines of Oklahoma, and then elsewhere. And this is just what the DEA wants to enforce. So, you got to watch the action, not the speak.
And so he just made some comments about Terry Cole and maybe not knowing what I think he referenced his former positions. And that's something else we've discussed on the show, and something I've tried to ask people about. We are live, and we just got another comment. So if you got any thoughts or comments, drop them below, and we can display them on screen. Genetic Memory Farms, thank you for tuning in. So in reference to Terrence Cole, which, like I said, if confirmed, will be leading the DEA. This person just made reference to who it remains to be seen. I'll reiterate again, all of this remains to be seen. Everybody's speculating at this point. But one thing is for sure, Terrence Cole made this. I'm on LinkedIn right now. I'm displaying Terrence Cole's LinkedIn page, and a year ago, which was not long ago, Terrence Cole made this post. He said, "Surprise visit to the Virginia Cannabis Control Authority to say hello to our amazing employees at the Commonwealth of Virginia." And then he said, "Everybody knows my stance on marijuana after 30 plus years in law enforcement, so don't even ask. Hashtag just say no, hashtag disorders, hashtag not legal for distribution, hashtag health issues, hashtag thin blue line, hashtag back the blue." All right, let's take those hashtags on one step at a time, starting with hashtag not legal for distribution. Technically, that is accurate. Cannabis is not legal for distribution. But this is what stood out to me. Hashtag just say no, hashtag disorders, hashtag health issues. Everybody knows his stance on marijuana after 30 plus years in law enforcement. So don't even ask. Well, I'm asking, what is your stance? Because from these hashtags, I'm thinking you're a just say no guy. You're and I'm speculating here. You think maybe it causes disorders and health issues. Hashtag. So hash. That's what I'm gonna go with. Hash. Anyways, this is some of the statements he's made in the past. What do you think? What do you think his stance is as a member of law enforcement for 30 plus years? Do you think my speculation is sort of falling in line with kind of what I'm saying? I'm very curious as to what you all gather from those comments. Is it positive? Is it negative? What do you think his stance is? Drop your comments below. And we're going to continue to discuss this. I don't know what this comment means, but I'm going to highlight it for a moment. It says, "Thomas Nast, famous Santa Claus illustrator, came from a very normalized cannabis culture. The pipe was a symbol of fidelity. Reefer madness is uneducated." That I agree with. Maybe you can tell us why you dropped this comment, because I said something in passing that I forgot about, but didn't expect that comment about the Santa Claus illustrator. But anyways, that, like I said, that press release made mention of backdooring, and what you're about to hear the CEO allege is possible money laundering. Let's watch this clip here as we continue going through this very interesting interview.
Each other internal to the United States.
Yeah. You actually said in your press release that there's a few companies that are legally exporting THC across state lines. Do you have any proof of that?
Yeah, of course. It's all over the place. I mean, they set up a Canadian corporation. They come into the United States. They get a license in a state, Florida. The money moves between the corporations. That's money laundering of a Schedule I substance. When you read it, then they start shipping through those entities into the European market. It's all federally illegal.
Well, hold on,
It's
hold
money
on, hold on,
laundering
hold on.
and it's illegal transportation of a Schedule I substance.
But
Just
no, no,
because
no.
they did a workaround.
There's no workaround. They own a Canadian LP license that's EU GMP certified to export cannabis into
Again,
the European Union.
I've been advised not to play in that game by some of the best firms in DC, and I paid a lot of money to get there. That makes me nervous, and it makes me putting my investors at risk very nervous. And this is what's going on. So that was in another article that I picked up, and I don't want to mention the companies, but yeah, they have these mechanisms set up.
Well, I mean,
yes, they're distributing.
You mentioned the companies in the press release.
It's out there.
One of them, yeah.
You had three companies
Two.
named.
Were there three?
You had three companies named yesterday in the press release.
So go on their website. Go on their websites and look where the stuff is going and how they're moving it.
I know one of the companies very, very well. And I can assure you that any of the product that's being grown in Florida is, let's say, not being diverted to their Canadian entity and then exported into the EU. The product that's being grown via the Canadian operation that is a fully federally legal licensed entity is cultivating product, exporting it into the EU, and it's EU GMP certified.
Yes. And legal exports to countries like Israel
and very legal.
Clear records. But
I understand what you're saying, but tell that to the DEA when somebody knocks at the door.
Well,
again, this is a guy that has followed the book to a T, and I'm getting this kind of pushback, right? Which is
I understand the pushback, but
I agree with you. But also those claims, I mean, it's strong language.
Very
it's
strong
happening.
language.
I mean,
it could be happening, but in case, like, for example, some of the companies that you've outlined, I don't think that maybe they're all entirely informed as to what's going on, because to Anthony's point, there are clear records of legal exports to countries like Israel and Germany through their Canadian subsidiary. And this is where it's getting misconstrued. But I just think if you're going to put a press release out, that's a pretty scathing comment to say something like that. If the proper research hasn't gone back around, if you don't understand what the whole story,
I understand what it is, and I understand what the DEA is doing, and I understand what they're capable of doing it. My point is, if they're doing it to me, why wouldn't they do it to them? It is happening. I proved it. I'm not trying to say anything that's not accurate. It's going on right now. If the DEA is going to hold me to that standard, they should hold everybody to that standard.
Yeah.
So Terry Cole has a very interesting predicament on his hands. There's an opportunity here to fix it all. I'm not saying that they should shut it down or investigate these people. I'm saying, DEA, get your act together, because you're all over the map.
Is this more of like
So very interesting statements. Very, very interesting statements here. And once again, if I hadn't already mentioned it, that is from a live stream that occurred today on the Dales Report. I'll be sure to have links into that. We're going to continue watching clips based on so everybody's talking about rescheduling, right? And that it's going to be great for these state companies. Again, we're all speculating here, but one thing, like I said, is clear: is as long as cannabis remains a controlled substance, the current state of the market continues to exist in violation of the Controlled Substances Act. And our friend Cannabis Critique, I meant to click on their comment, but I'm displaying Jeremy's comment right now. They say remove cannabis from the federal schedule of controlled substances. I completely agree. Like alcohol and tobacco, cannabis should be completely descheduled. It has no place on the Controlled Substances Act. In fact, I think the Controlled Substances Act needs to be done away with entirely, but that's another conversation for another show. Cannabis Critique says coal money. And actually, that's kind of the point I wanted to make. I don't know if this is what you meant by it, but if you've ever seen a show called Ozark, not to give Netflix any free advertising, they're doing quite well for themselves, but I always wished that show would have been made a few years later than it had, because if you haven't seen that show, I'll try not to give any spoilers, but basically it's this accountant that works for the cartel, and his job is to launder money. He's very good at laundering money. And in order to do that, he looks for cash-only businesses, like a gentleman's club or a restaurant. And what's a cash only business that we're all familiar with? Cannabis. And I can't help but wonder if that show was made a few years later, if Jason Bateman's character would have been purchasing a cannabis dispensary in the state of Missouri, which is where that show takes place. It starts in Chicago. They go to Missouri. Would have been a really funny twist in the show if they would have started laundering money through, a cannabis dispensary. So I don't know. I thought that this discussion was extremely insightful, and I've got one more clip to play because, as he said something to the effect of reschedule is no big win. Nah, it's really not. We need to have this product descheduled, and they kind of continued that line of thought in this clip that we are just about to watch once again from the Dales Report. Here it is.
Be cooperating with us, not bucking up against us to this extent.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to
Eventually-
understand when you say there's more concerns on the state level, like the trains left the station and this job industry where, employs what's close to 500 million people. Like, I don't think they're going to turn their back on something like that.
I sure hope not. I mean, I'm with you. I understand what you're saying. Believe me, and I'm an advocate. I'm not saying this against it, but I'm also sitting on the different side looking, and I'm not listening to the speak. I'm watching the action.
Yeah.
It doesn't look good. Doesn't look good. And I hope that's not the case.
Can you provide an example on what you think is not going to look, why you think it doesn't look good?
Trump put the budget in there to remove the money from going to the agencies to protect. That means that now law enforcement can come into the states.
And do you think they have the time and effort they want to do that sort of thing?
Absolutely. I mean, look at what's going on. You got the ATF coming into the DEA. They're clamping down. Their claim is that the cartels are shipping illegally still through the state operators. They're going to start investigating these people. And it just doesn't look good. And I'm watching the action. I'm not watching the speak. It doesn't shape up good.
Okay.
And I mean, I'm getting the same pushback, so it's nothing, we're just working through it.
You got some valid points, but the one thing about this industry, it's not so clear cut and precise. It's just there's a lot of moving pieces, and it's tough.
It's evolving.
It's tough to predict as to how it's going to unfold. But it's good to get an opinion one way or another. It's good to obviously have their own opinions and have your feedback. I'd like to get different perspectives from things.
So once again, definitely check out the Dales Report for some good, insightful conversation like the one you just saw. I thought there were some really very, very interesting moments there, and like I say, this is shaping up to be pretty interesting. I thought it was notable that they got this quote from the Attorney General that's basically saying that they're not going to be dealing with the ALJ anymore, which from what I understand about the rescheduling process, that's been the big holdup. So that's why you may have seen some speculation that rescheduling might be imminent or right around the corner. Who knows? And I'll just say while we're speculating, I know that I've made it very clear that as long as cannabis remains a scheduled substance, that the current state of the market will continue to exist in violation of the Controlled Substances Act. Do I believe we're going to see enforcement? Well, again, it's hard to tell. Trump in the first administration had his, I will hesitate to say had his attorney general repeal the Cole memo. He repealed the Cole memo. And some people have reported that Trump, made some statement with regard to that and that maybe he disagreed with it or whatever, but actions speak louder than reported words. I've never seen a direct quote. I've never heard a soundbite of him actually disagreeing on the rescission of rescinding of the Cole memo. And then for him to put forth in this budget proposal for not the first time, he's done this multiple times, as Marijuana Moment reports. Let's make this full screen again. This is Trump's first budget request of his second term, but during his first term, he similarly called for the deletion of, a protection for states that have legalized medical marijuana during each year of his presidency. So Look, do I think that there's going to be some big crackdown from the federal government? No. Especially if cannabis gets rescheduled, which I don't personally agree with, but the way I said it with when I had actual prohibitionists on the show, we've been selling cannabis as a Schedule 1 drug over the counter in violation of the Controlled Substances Act for since like 2012. If it gets bumped down to Schedule 3, which is Schedule 1 basically says that drugs have no medicinal use. Schedule 3 acknowledges that it does have some medicinal utility. And so it's not a sliding scale, but in my opinion, if we've been operating under Schedule 1 without major enforcement or crackdowns, I don't think bumping it to Schedule 3 is going to end up with major enforcement or crackdowns. And I hope I'm correct about that. It would really suck if I was wrong and that we did see major enforcement and crackdowns. Hey, I'll call you right back. So, folks, I hope you enjoyed this little episode of the Cole Memo. I want to know what you think. Drop your comments below after the fact. Genetic Memory Farm says glass pipes started as a way to launder money from selling on the Dead Tour. Boats were a way to launder money in Florida during the cocaine cowboy era. Italian organized crime used pizza shops. Hey, that's what I'm talking about. I love pizza. I would love to launder money through a pizza shop. Genetic Memory Farm says all of the conversations around cannabis at the moment are around who makes what profit, and what we should really be talking about are the patients who got us here. Patients have been utterly forgotten in Illinois. I completely agree. Jeremy, thank you again. I've not seen your name before. Thank you for tuning in and dropping comments. He says, or they say, they kind of need cannabis industry money and all that 50,000 plus products might produce. And then they ask, cannabis crops for environmental filtration? That's a good question. I know that we've had people on the show that have actually done grant funded programs, I think, to do exactly that. They've got hemp, which hemp is cannabis, as you probably, if you tune into the show, you hear me talk about all the time. They've got hemp planted around like a pond or a lake or something, and they're sequestering stuff out of the ground because cannabis is a good soil remediator. He says, I garden, I use Latin. Cannabis Critique says, thank you for keeping us up to date. Yeah, thank you for tuning in and for dropping comments, dude. And if you're watching this after the fact, folks, please drop your comments. They still mean as much to me, even if you're not dropping them live. Again, I want to know what you think. How do you think this is going to play out? What were your takeaways from the clips that we watched today? And if you are watching this after the fact, I try to go back in and drop the show notes. I try to drop links in the show notes. So check out the description of the episode from wherever you're listening from. I'll try to put those links in so that you can watch that full episode of the Dales Report. You can check out that press release yourself. You can look at Terrence Cole's post on LinkedIn yourself. And I'm curious, what are your takeaways? What do you think? What do you think the future is looking at? Because again, what do you think the future is looking like? Because again, at this point, we're all speculating, and I'm curious. I've seen some really awesome thoughts online, and I'd love to hear what you have to say. Everybody has a unique perspective, and it's always interesting to hear what people think. So, yeah, thank you again for all tuning in. I hope that you're having a good week so far, and I hope that you got smooth sailing for the rest of your week. We'll get to Friday, folks. It'll be here before you know it. Folks, I hope you found value in this shorter episode of the Cole Memo. If you haven't already, smash that like button, subscribe, share it with your friends. You can support me at colememo.com/Patreon, which I just dropped an episode with a advocate from Michigan who has helped to decriminalize psychedelics in multiple cities in the state of Michigan. They even got a county to decriminalize psychedelics. I mean, that's what the fuck I'm talking about. So if you want to see that episode now, you can go to colememo.com/Patreon and become a member. If Patreon's not your thing and you're not interested in it, it's only $3 a month. But If you're not interested in it, that's okay. We drop all episodes for free. I always release all of my content for free. But once again, that's colememo.com/Patreon. If you can throw $1 or $2 my way, colememo.com/support. It's not free to do this. This streaming platform that I have, this equipment that I've bought, the traveling I'm about to do, it all adds up. And so if you can throw $1 or $2 my way, you can make a contribution of your choice at colememo.com/support. Folks, take care. Thank you for tuning in. Have a good one.